Show creators Tom Butterworth and James Richardson, along with stars David Morrissey and Eleanor Worthington-Cox. Big round of applause, please. Hi, guys. Take a mic. Take a mic. Welcome to my living room.
Oh, thank you very much. Lovely sofa.
How are you guys doing at Comic-Con?
Very well. Thank you very much.
Good. And now we're about to hit season 2.
Yes, we are.
Bloody hell, like, what was your reaction to everyone else's reaction to the first season? What was your thoughts?
It was great. I mean, you know, we'd had such a great time making it. We'd shot it in the Czech, season 1, we'd shot in the Czech Republic. And for me as the actor, it's different for these guys, but as the actor, you know, you sort of shoot it and then you go home and you do other jobs. Mm-hmm. So when it came out, we went to the screening. The first time I saw it was in Cannes, and it just blew me away. It was fantastic. And I just think all the production qualities that we'd hoped would happen when we were shooting it, I was just hoping they'd ended up on screen, and they did. And that's not always the case as an actor. Yeah. Sometimes you're doing stuff and you think, we're working hard, will it end up on screen? And it slightly doesn't. Yeah. Whereas this one, it did. And season 2 is just fantastic. So I'm really looking forward for everyone seeing that.
It's a show that really, it stands apart for me as a fantasy sort of fan, an historical sort of fan. It's a show with a real style and an edge and a flavour from the script and the acting and the characters. It's such a complex world that you've built as well. How do you go about creating a world like this? It's quite deep, and there's a lot of drama in there as well with the characters.
I think a lot of late nights and red wine and some crazy ideas. I mean, we were very lucky because Tom and Jez and I literally just came up with whatever we thought was the next mad idea. We had these amazing actors to play these bonkers roles, but we didn't have a book. You know, obviously there's no book like some other famous shows. We just had ourselves and some late nights literally just going, okay, what can we get Eleanor and David to do next that's going to be really ridiculous and surprising and fun. So it's yeah, we have quite a lot of fun coming up with the ideas for it.
I think you feel that when you're watching the show, although there can be heavy moments, violent moments, and things, there's levity in there as well. It's fun to watch. I mentioned earlier that it's got its own distinct style, 100% from Vikings or the Game of Thrones or anything else. When you were creating the show, did you have a really distinct vision, sonically because of the music and everything else, and visually? Where did that come from?
I think we felt like bringing some like English psychedelia to a period show, and to take something that, you know, people know something about the Roman invasion of Britain, and to look at it with like a sort of a psychedelic Druid's head, rather than just like an objective historical telling of what little we actually knew about what happened then. And we thought what we'd do instead is take it to Glastonbury a bit.
Yeah, you definitely feel that. I love it. Again, that's what I think the appeal is, because there's so many of these weighty fantasy shows and weighty historical shows. So you think you've all done an amazing job of it. Amazing. But I wanted to talk about some of the characters. Let's talk about Mackenzie Crook quickly, because he plays 2 characters. Explain who he plays in the second season, because we know he's already Viren, but he plays the dead man as well. Can you explain this?
Well, we wanted to introduce a kind of another very dark force into the show, and we wanted to bring his Veren's brother to kind of mess things up, because we thought actually what would be really exciting for season 2 is to put the Druids in a really, really tricky place, not just from what Aulus and the Romans are up to, but we thought we'd bring in this character of the dead man, and we thought who best to play Mackenzie's brother than Mackenzie, who blew us away in season 1, just watching him with this character Veren, and we just thought, okay, this is so unique, and you know, this is a guy who I used to love in The Office, and now he's playing a gangster high druid, and we just thought that would be be really interesting. And we said to him, "Listen, Mackenzie, do you want to do it?" And at first he was going, "No, I don't think I can do that." And he said, "Do you really think I can do it?" And we went, "Yeah, of course you can. You're brilliant." And he went, "Okay." And we said, "Look, just think of this is a kind of Iggy Pop character." And it's an amazing performance. It's really extraordinary.
Now, we're going to play a clip in a second, but before we play this clip from season 2, I wanted to ask all of you, what can we expect? Give us a little flavour of what we can expect from season 2.
Well, I do think it's all about the power struggle, really. I mean, Mackenzie playing the two characters of the brothers, it gets very sort of... it gets very like the Gallaghers in Oasis, they don't get on very well. So there's a lot of fireworks around that. But it is about the power struggle. The Romans are now a little bit more embedded in the land. But they're doing that thing that they do so well, which is divide and conquer. So that's where they're going. But Cait is also sort of still at large, and Aulus is after her, and that pursuit of her, and trying to find that power. But there's also some great, real fun moments, big scenes, really, which we've all enjoyed doing.
Brilliant. Well, without further ado, let's stick on this clip and have a look, you guys. Let's go for it. This is clip number 1 from season 2. Okay, I love that scene. Oh my God. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, we see Steve Pemberton there, who plays Emperor Claudius. Tell us about the creation from a sort of creator's point of view. Tell us about this character and him coming in. How did you create this character? He's a great actor as well.
He's fantastic in it. Well, it's all actually, unlike a lot of Britannia, everything that happened there is true. He did, just after the invasion, the Emperor did show up on an elephant for obvious showbiz reasons to make an entrance. He did have Tourette's, he did suffer from piles, and he thought he was a god. And that was just like 20 minutes on Wikipedia gave me and Jez that, and that's what we ran with.
It's as though we actually made a historical show.
Yeah, that bit's bang on. You can take that to exams and stuff.
I've never heard so much history in the creation of this show in my life as what Tom's just said.
I've learned something. Gods have piles too. Tell me about the dynamics. So, from a character point of view, he's come in and you see a little bit of interaction there. How do the dynamics change then in terms of character?
So yeah, I mean, he arrived. Obviously, I am the main Roman presence in Britain, and then my Lord turns up, so he sort of takes over the power from then on. And what he says is he wants me back. He wants me to travel back to Rome. And that isn't in my personal agenda. I need to stay in Britannia to complete what I need to do. So there's a real power struggle between us then. And in the first episode of season 2, you see me trying through various ways to negotiate staying in Britannia. And some of them are to do with, regular begging and just asking him. And then I have to use different wily methods to make sure that I stay in Britannia. But the eyes are on me now. I mean, you feel from the beginning of the season 2 that I'm being watched all the time, and we don't need CCTV coverage of someone to be watched. There's spies around. Every regime has always had their version of, the Stasi system of bugs in the telephones and stuff like that. And that's what happens here, is you see that Aulus is being watched and observed, and reports are being sent back to Rome all the time. So he's on very thin ice from then on.
So I guess that's where your character's head's at, because you have a mission, your actual mission, I know, is to find you, right? So, and obviously, is he aware he's being watched as we?
Yes, he's very aware of it, and he has to tread very carefully and be very political inside that, and also very ruthless. He is a ruthless man, and life means nothing to him. So in his pursuit of finding Cait, he employs very ruthless methods in order to to find her out, really.
You have played a few ruthless roles in the past.
Yes, I have.
You have. So what attracted you to this role in particular?
Well, what was the real attraction for me was Tom and Jez being the writers. I mean, when my agent phoned me up and said they were doing the show, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with them, and then I met James, and the scale of the show was something I wanted to do. I felt that it was very different. You know, we've seen shows set in this time period before, but as Tom alluded to, there was something very psychedelic about this. There was something, you know, a lot of our history stuff or you know, things like this is a bit po-faced. Whereas this, I thought it was such a modern show. It's about politics, it's about sex and drugs and rock and roll, really. And that's what attracted me to it. I've always been one that's very attracted to sex and drugs and rock and roll. So that was it, really. And they've delivered in spades. I think there's a heady world here. You know, there's something about the Druids, their belief systems. I mean, you know, you travel around the UK and you see things like Stonehenge or, you know, the chalk mountains and the chalk drawings of the man and stuff like that, you know, Mystery Man and everything like that. And you think, God, those guys, those people who were living in those times, that you know, pre-Christian Britain is a strange and wonderful place. And the chance to be able to explore that in all its magical headiness was wonderful. And we've certainly in this season, it's been delivered in spades. I love it.
We're going to delve a little bit deeper now. We're going to go and look at the next clip. And this is more focused on you, Eleanor, now. So let's have a look at the next clip. Let's line it up. This is another exclusive clip from season 2. And then we'll be asking you what the hell is going on in this next one. Okay, as you attempt something rather silly. I think that's what the next clip's going to be. Can we have that next clip, please? Right, so my first question for you, Eleanor, is what the hell's going on? What are you doing jumping off a cliff? Tell us about this scene, please.
I mean, what isn't going on here? I've got a 10-foot wingspan. Nikolai's twerking with a birdcage on his head. Like, there's a lot to unpack. No, Cait is going through one of many trials that she has to endure before hopefully fulfilling the prophecy that she's found herself at the heart of. So it's a huge moment for her, a massive test in her faith in herself and in the prophecy, and she literally jumps off a cliff.
Hope she's okay. We'll have to wait and see. Has there been any, talking about tests and things like that, has there been any, in a good way, any testing times for you when you've been filming?
I mean, when filming something like this, it's just brilliant because you have so many things that get thrown at you on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it can be the weather or a scene changing or the way you interpret it on the day. And I think that's one of the best things about this project. You constantly have a new challenge, and it's always exciting. There's nothing that feels humdrum or, oh, you know, this feels a bit similar to something I did last week or last episode. Everything is new. Everything is crazy. And so, yeah, it's all testing, and that's the best thing about it.
One of the big testing things this season was the heat. We were filming through the summer, and if you remember, it was pretty horrible. So we had to have a cold tent, remember? So there was like this freezing tent that we had to go in. And you were in there a few times, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, just layer upon layer of, like, clothing that you do. Yeah, you need a cold tent.
So we go to the cold. We lost our director at one point. He had to go to the cold tent.
Yeah.
So it is. So just to give a shout out to our crew, actually.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Who are just second to none and brilliant.
Unbelievable.
You know, we've had we went through all the elements this season, and they were there all the way. So, you know, us as actors, we can go back to our trailer every now and again, but our crew are out there 24/7, and the work they do to get us up to speed is just fantastic.
They don't get a cold tent, do they?
We all shared a cold tent.
Okay.
There was no hierarchy when it came to the cold tent.
Good. Cold tents for all, basically. Tell us about Nikolai, because you guys share so many scenes together, and I love the way that your relationship changes from the beginning to the end. And we see something a little bit there from season 2. What's it like working together?
I mean, honestly, Nikolai is the crazy uncle I always wanted. And, you know, from day one, you know, we were flung together and it was just, from the minute we had our first scene, it was like, oh, brilliant, great. I get to act with this crazy guy for God knows how long. This is the best day of my life. Honestly, he makes me laugh until I weep. The guy is hilarious. And I think being able to work with somebody that we're just not afraid to be totally open, like, I beat him up, he beats me up. It's great.
Great. In a nice way.
Oh, God, yeah. It's brilliant, though, because we have such a love-hate relationship in the show that, you know, if there is a moment in a scene where he just feels the need to bash me on the face, it's just going to happen. It's going to happen. And I'm going to be able to kick him back, and there will be no awkwardness. You're fearless when it comes to Nikolai. He prepares you for everything.
You can tell through that first season, there is a lovely rapport. Like, you've got a good vibe on screen. And even there, I was like, yes, so great.
I mean, he's brilliant. You know, it's just, I'm so lucky that I've been able to work with him. And, you know, it's such a tight duo. They spend all their time together. It's such an intense relationship of trying to prepare me for this massive responsibility. And so it's great that we can have these moments of comedy, but equally that we do have that love and understanding between us where there's a deeper connection underlying.
And tell me, let's go back to your character, Cait. So at the start of season 2, we've talked about your character, David, but where's your head at? Where's Kate's head at?
I mean, she's literally on the edge of a cliff and, like, emotionally as well. She's having doubts in herself and her strength, and, you know, she's trying to figure out who she is and what her part is in the prophecy and in, you know, the world around her. She's trying to find her way, and I think that a lot of young women can relate to that. You know, this isn't just a struggle that somebody can go through, you know, thousands of years. You know, this is somebody who's relatable. She's a young woman who's trying to figure out who she is and where she belongs and, you know, where she is in herself. So, yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt, but we'll just have to wait and see how she figures that out for herself.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
Now let's get to this is one of my favorite clips that we got sent through. Let's get to the next clip. Let's play the next clip. I won't explain it too much. I've got some questions to ask afterwards, but this clip is absolutely fantastic and beautifully shot, may I add as well. Like, I love this next clip. If we could get clip 3 up, please. Thank you very much. Round of applause. Oh, I love that scene. I have goosebumps, actually. I love watching that scene. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, yes. So before we delve into this, tell us what's going on here. Like, what is going on here?
So what we wanted to do for this is that we wanted to see what could we do to the Roman army that was going to be fun. And so what we decided to do was spike them with magic mushrooms. And so the scene before, which we haven't shown, they have got so high, and a couple of the characters from season 1 basically just give them so many shrooms.
Too many.
Too many. And so they've had this quite kind of major night where it's all gone a bit weird. And the clip you've just seen starts from the morning after. So they've had quite an experience. And what could we do to make that experience a little more intense? Well, we thought, let's get the Druids to come in and kill them all. And that was the idea.
Yeah, the idea was that we wanted all the Romans to sort of realise that they didn't want to be Romans anymore. And just as they wake up and it's all nice and fluffy and dawn and they're all in love with each other and the world, the Druids attacked and killed them all.
So don't do drugs, kids.
So that's what's going on there.
Lesson learned.
It's a family show. It's a special Disney family show.
It's all rainbows and unicorns, that's all it is. I love the way that the scene is constructed, because sometimes when you get scenes like that in other historical or fantasy shows, you get quick cuts, or it's very, very dark, or you don't know what's going on, and it's like, oh my God, again, to give that feel of action, but you've given a lot of room to breathe in this scene, and there's even a color palette change as well, which I really, really love. In terms of a writing point of view, how do you go about constructing fight scenes like that and action sequences?
Well, what we were watching there was in large part down to our fantastic director we had for this episode, Rob Savage, and his wonderful editor, Brenna Rangert. I think what we said was they fight, or
And
the
go.
Druids attack.
Yeah, it's over to you now.
And Rob ran with it, and he loved storyboarding. He loves, as you can probably tell, blood and horror, peck and par, old school, actual blood, non-CGI violence. And we just encouraged him to fill his boots, and he did, and that was great. So,
and we also season 2. I mean, season 1. If we're totally honest, we didn't know what we were doing. These guys did, but we really didn't. I think halfway through season 1, we kind of suddenly got the idea of what we were making. And the first half of season 1, we had no idea what we were doing. So it was quite nice to kind of get into the rhythm of go, okay, this is the show. And then in season 2, the joy, of course, for us as the creators and writers was to say, okay, what did we like from season 1, and what do we like about our characters, and how do we push it all? And we had this incredible palette of actors to play with, and literally we just said, okay, what do we enjoy that we can kind of play more with? And with a scene like this, there was a similar idea of just going, okay, surely we want to see High Romans, and surely we want to see Druids killing High Romans, was a kind of simple idea. And then music-wise, we thought, let's just play with the music here as well. And as Tom said, really kind of lean into the idea of a kind of psychedelia, British psychedelia, and the rock and roll feel that is embedded in the show. Not just it's cool to have rock and roll, but actually the vibe of the show is... That's what it is. It's got that ancient, British rock and roll vibe to it, which is. And so Rob Savage, brilliantly as director, just went, okay, I want to really go for it, and we encouraged him and just said, do what you want.
Now, you've mentioned that rock and roll vibe quite a few times, which you can see from what we're watching, it comes across. And there has been an array of people that absolutely love this show, including me, like lots of fans, but, there are some haters online sometimes, and people will come out and go, it's not got that epic orchestral feel to it, or you know what I mean? So how do you respond to people that are nitpicking? How do you respond to those negative comments?
I think it's important to make the show you want to make. So what happens is, creatively we sit back, and these guys sit back, and we know what show we want to make, and we have taken time to sort of see our vision and what it is. And obviously people all the time have opinions about what they want to see and what else is out there. And sometimes you listen to that and sometimes you don't. But what's really important is if you start to chase a vision that's out there that's other people's, you'll lose your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to be part of what you want to create and keep coming back to why you wanted to do this show. Very quickly, you can be spread, you can get mission creep very quickly on shows like this, which we hope to be with this show for a long, long time, and we have great visions about where we want to go. But to be true to our vision, we have to stay with that. Listen, but absolutely be true to our vision. And a sequence like you've just seen, that's our vision. It's not coming from anybody else. It's not trying to ape other people. It's given the creative people that we've employed license to do what they do best. And what's great about that sequence we've just seen is its point of view. Our idea of the Druids is that they're this sort of, we like to think of them as these hippie sort of loving people, and actually we see them here as the people who are defending their land. You have to remember that the Romans are the invading force, and these are people protecting their land and their belief system and everything to go with it. And that's wonderful. So it's always important to come back to the vision that you had as collective people of the show you want to make. And, you know, in that old saying of like, if you build it, they will come. And that for us is about building the show that we want to. And at the end of the day, we sit there and we watch it and we go, are we proud of that? And if we're proud of it, then we put it out.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I think also you can't ever, I mean, just to add to what David said, you can't ever, you want, of course, everyone to love it. Of course you do. And we want as many people as possible to love the show. But we'll never, ever, if you're making something which is so unique to itself, as it were, there are going to be people that are going to go, I want to watch a really historical show. Or, I mean, people who want to watch a historical show need to watch a historical show.
Damn right.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, this show is not that one. I think I don't think any of us read a history book, actually, did we? We knew that the Romans did invade Britannia, but I think that's the only thing.
A good start. So
That's a good start. And then there are people who comment and say, but that this happened and that didn't happen. I go, I have no, I'm sure. And also, by the way, they're speaking in English, so not Latin and Celt or whatever.
I think everyone needs to calm down and have a cup of tea and a biscuit and just find the show for them.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that is true about the show, I mean, obviously historical accuracy isn't our priority, but power is something that we research a lot. It's certainly something I look at a lot, is about how people are manipulated, how power is used, how populaces are manipulated all the time. The idea of how fear drives people's decisions, things like that. Violence, how people use violence, how the threat of violence, coercion, divide and rule, things like that. So inside our show, you know, it has all the historical setting, if not its accuracy, but the truth of the show behind power, and particularly invading power and colonial power, I think is very accurate. And certainly from my point of view, reading about how people use power when they're in positions to govern people is really important. And I think Tom and Jez and everybody who writes the show and creates the show, that's what we're giving out there. And I think that's really important.
And those are themes that are still prevalent today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
human beings are very predictable. We've not changed. So
Yeah.
you know,
No, I
we're
think
still exactly the same. Now, quick question before we hand it over to the floor for some fan questions. So for those who haven't caught up on season 1 yet, shame on you. Why are you here? I want you to try and sort of, maybe in one sentence or a couple of words, encapsulate why people should catch up on season 1 to get straight into season 2. Why should they watch?
Just to have fun, I think. If you just want to have a really good laugh, this is a show, you know, I mean, it's for us, the other thing I wanted to say, it's a real privilege to be at Comic-Con because this is, you know, we want the fans to go for this, and Comic-Con for us is exactly the place that we like to be because we want people to have a laugh. We're not taking it too seriously. Having said that, we hope we're making a really great show, and we just want everyone to have a great laugh. That was not one sentence, was it? Jesus.
Just let
Sorry
me go.
about
Just
that.
keep going. Thank you so much. Now, okay, let's hand it over to the floor because you guys are the people that make this show, okay, and how great it is. So questions. We've got a guy at the front here. There's people over there. Go for it.
Hi. Question for Eleanor. You've obviously, sorry, I don't like these things. You've obviously transversed on TV and film. How does it feel coming back to this character after you've been in something like Gwen this year?
I mean, Britannia is wild and it's chaotic and it's full of fun. And, you know, to go on to a project where it's, you know, very, very dark and, you know, it's a huge contrast, obviously. So to be able to come back to something like this and have an amazing amount of fun, you know, I love being able to do a variety of roles. And, you know, I always like to make sure that the women I'm portraying are people that I think would be a good example for other young women. And so, you know, who better than this young woman that I get to portray? It's an absolute honor. So yeah, it's definitely a contrast to some of the other projects that I've been on recently, but Cait is the most incredibly fun character you could ever wish to play. I've grown up with this character. I started this series when I was 14. I'm 18 now, and you know, I've got to watch myself develop along with this young woman, and I couldn't be more grateful for that.
And a question here in the middle.
Thank you. Hi, I've just got a question about the sort of origins and influences. I can see that you're mentioning about the kind of the sort of psychedelic English kind of heritage, and you know, the sort of show certainly brings across that sense of sort of folk heritage, pop culture, the kind of Led Zepp 4 kind of you know, musical influences there. Obviously Donovan, and I can also see, I suppose, the sort of 70s cult cinema canon there, sort of Witchfinder General and Wicker Man, Ben Wheatley's A Field in England. I can, you know, these sort of influences. I suppose I was just going to ask if you have any sort of homework, kind of cultural references that you would recommend fans go and have a look at, you know, that influenced your creation.
Musically, I think, was the biggest in terms of the sort of the vibe of the show. It's all that early 70s English, Which Season label, Joe Boyd Productions, Fairport Convention. It was that folk rock, English folk rock, not blues folk rock. It was that English folk rock moment that happened in the early 70s, when I think young English people, especially, were looking back at their own history and trying to make a different sort of sense of it than they'd had at school, a much more psychedelic sense that was much more personal. And for me and Jez anyway, we grew up in St Albans, which is just full of Roman ruins. And the parks that we first drank cider in and, yes, dropped acid in, were full of Roman ruins. And so that's a big part of just the vibe of this, is that I remember being in that feeling of being somewhere ancient where stuff had gone down. Not all of it pretty, but it was important. And that, and being aged 13, 14, 15, and going home and listening to your mum's folk rock collection is largely to blame for. So unless you can exactly replicate that experience, I can't really recommend a reading list. So, thanks for the question.
Thank you for the question. Next question, please.
A question here.
Sorry, this is a question for David. You spoke briefly about power, and I think throughout your career you've done an excellent job of portraying power in previous roles, and certainly in Britannia. Just wondered if you can continue to carry that forward into the Marvel Phase 4.
That's a rumor online. I'm not allowed to talk about that. Well, not that I'm not allowed to, but I'm not going to talk about that. So, but that's quite an interesting question. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? We've got time for one more question with someone at the front here. Hi there. What's your question, sir?
Hi, this is a question for David. Well, I'm trying to be an actor myself. When you go into a role like you're playing, say a ruthless character, as you've done throughout your career, do you do any preparation beforehand, as in terms of the audition, by any chance?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's always about time, really, about how much time you're given. The thing that I'm really thankful for that I sort of never had to do, but I know Ellen has to do it a bit, is that thing of putting yourself on tape now. So when I was becoming an actor, I would meet people in the room. I would sort of meet them and have a conversation with them and be able to talk to them about the script and the project, and then maybe read. But now what happens is, you know, you're on your mobile phone, you read the scene, you send that off. So there's very little chance for people to get to know you as a person and what you bring to it. What I would say is that once you get a job, I'm sort of geeky in the sense that I love to read around it. Like with this, I know we're talking about the lack of historical accuracy on us, but I did do a lot of reading around this. I read a lot of Mary Beard and sort of Tom Holland, who's a great writer, about Roman invasions, only because I'm a geek and I like to have that sort of thing. I like to read that stuff, but also human behavior, psychoanalysis, psychology, things like that, why people do things. I'm constantly asking that about how we behave as human beings. And as an actor, everything is useful to you, everything. So I would say, my advice to you as an actor starting out is be as curious about life as possible. Go read, see other films, go to exhibitions, find out about the human character and how we react to each other. And our life at the moment, I know we feel like we're living through a car crash of a time, but it's wonderful as far as an actor is concerned to see how power, manipulation, how humanity is being viewed. You see it all the time, and I would really be greedy for that type of thing. But read, listen to music, do it as much as possible. Get out there and watch. Be as curious. You're never going to get anything in your bedroom on your own. Get out, do as much as you can. You're not a musician, so rehearsing your guitar in your bedroom, that's not for us. What we do is out there. Get out there as much as possible and be as curious as possible about the world. That's what I would say.
Oh, it's great advice. I hope that answered your question. Guys, I want to thank you very much. I'm so excited about season 2.
Thank you, me too.
I think you have done a brilliant job of season 1, so no doubt this season will be perfection. So can we have a massive round of applause?
Thank you, everybody.
For
Thank
David,
you, everybody.
Eleanor,
Thank
Tom,
you.
and
Thank you.
James. Huge, bigger, louder. Yes. Thank you very much, guys.
And ladies and gentlemen, the hall is now going to close until our next panel, which is the Hasbro Transformers panel at 3:30.